Coming up on the next edition of Power and Politics, the first debate of this presidential election season is set for this coming week. What President Biden and Donald Trump need to accomplish in this first debate showdown. And is the state of Florida really in play this November? Hello and welcome to another edition of Power and Politics. I'm your host, Frank Cipolla. Power and Politics is a weekly unbiased look at the top stories affecting the state with a special emphasis on the psychology behind the decisions and issues that affect our lives. I am joined today by my co-host, Emmy award-winning political psychologist, Dr. Bart Rossi. Doctor, welcome.
Great to be here again, Frank.
Well, we're not usually talking about a presidential debate in June, but here we are with the first presidential debate of the season scheduled for this coming Thursday. Both President Biden and former President Trump are doing debate prep in advance of this one-on-one. So let's talk about the debate first, then we'll talk about the psychology of it. How do you see this shaking out?
Well, Frank, I think the big issue here is how is Donald Trump going to project himself? And that, to me, means he wants to be the boss. He wants to show he's in charge. He wants to be someone bigger and better than Joe Biden, the president.
Okay, let me stop you there. They're turning his mic off as well as President Biden's mic when the question is not directed at them, number one. Number two, there's no studio audience in this debate, and Donald Trump derives a lot of his energy from the audience. So how will that affect?
It will have an effect. I believe it will have an effect on him, but he's probably preparing to be an attack person, to really go after the president and try to highlight his weaknesses and differences in policy and say things that are very, very stark and dark and abrasive in a lot of ways. That's his style. And by the way, he's very good at projecting that. He's the authoritarian personality. That's how he wants to come across.
Now, several weeks ago, Dr. Rossi made a crazy claim here, which we'll make again. You don't think that this debate is going to happen this week. You don't think it's going to happen.
I still have my doubts.
Why?
And the reason is because I don't think the former president wants to talk about having an affair with a former porn star. I don't think he wants to really talk about a lot of things that relate to his behavior, a conviction. No, I don't think he really wants to be there. But he's agreed. His camp has agreed. And
are you going back on your prediction?
No, I'm going to still stay with it. I didn't bet 10-1, but I bet 7-5. So I may have to give you $7 here. You understand what I'm saying?
I think we bet $10 on this.
No,
like
7-5. And
okay.
but what I'm saying is, I think he could at the last minute get a lot of publicity by backing out and saying this is rigged and it's not a fair debate.
Which is something he has done before. Yeah. It's sort of his MO. I happen to think he will be there. I don't think he can back out, but I think it is a possibility. So we disagree on this particular point.
We do.
Okay, another story this week is former President Trump's call for President Biden to take a cognitive test. The challenge from Trump came while misidentifying the name of the doctor who tested him. And let's be honest, running for president, being president is a vigorous job, even for a younger man or woman.
Right.
Even if you're in your 50s or 60s, you never have a day off.
Yeah.
You're always on call and ready to go. These are two gentlemen who, quite frankly, are a bit older. One is 78, one is 81. So my thinking is, is a cognitive test required, or maybe it should be required?
Frank, what kind of cognitive test and who would score it? Can you imagine the scoring and who would be faking it and who was being honest about it and if it was fixed? Oh, come on. Now, psychologists have a lot of good cognitive tests. That's not what we need here. By the way, a good debate would be a cognitive test, wouldn't it? Where you could take a look at a position on policy, who looks sharp, who looks intelligent, who looks capable. And that's what the debate is about. That's a good enough cognitive test.
All right, time now for one of our regular segments, a commentary from Dr. Bart Rossi that we call the Rossi Rant.
And Frank, today I'd like to go off a little bit on religion in America, okay? Because a lot of religious groups are trying to influence policy in this country. I think you've probably seen recently a Southern religious group here in the United States wants to ban IVF. There are other groups that, of course, are anti-abortion. We have a situation where we have, of course, Mormons who believe their religion is the religion for the world. Catholics are not too fond of born-again Christians, and of course the born-again Christians feel that the Catholics are a cult. And then, of course, we have the Jewish faith, we have a Muslim faith. So which faith is the real one? I happen to agree, as a psychologist, in the Founding Fathers. They put in the Constitution separation of church and state. And I believe that this is where we should be going, but we're taking a different road right now. We're listening to religious groups try to make policy in the United States. And for religious groups to make policy is going down the wrong road. I'm thinking as a psychologist, let everybody believe what they want to believe, even if you're an agnostic or even if you're an atheist. But let that be, and let's deal with the real issues and not religion, separation of church and state, as per the Founding Fathers.
Absolutely correct. All right, thank you, Doctor. Coming up, some polls seem to indicate that Florida may resume its position as a bona fide swing state. Is it? Or will it continue this November to remain in the red column when Power and Politics continues? Welcome back to Power and Politics. I'm Frank Cipolla, joined by political psychologist Dr. Bart Rossi. Despite Florida's recent tilt toward a dependable red state, Democrats are hoping questions on this year's ballot, including one preserving abortion rights and another legalizing marijuana, will put the state back in play. So are we looking at Florida being a swing state this year?
Depends on the Democrats.
That's not a yes or no, though.
It depends on their messaging. You know, we've been very critical of Democrats in the way they present themselves. And again, we had a segment here where we talked about James Carville, of course, the ex-Marine, the strong Democratic advocate across the country. And he agrees with me that, or I agree with him, that messaging is really not good in the Democratic Party. But here in Florida, if they push the abortion issue, marijuana, and is really Florida with all these new laws a freedom state, or is it the other way? I think a lot of people are not happy with all of these rules and regulations that have been passed in Florida. On one hand, it's said that it's a freedom state, but on the other hand, there's a lot of restrictions and government interference, of course, with the whole thing about women cannot really take care of their own body. They have to listen to the government interjecting what goes on. So that's a problem.
Well, Republican voter registration has been steadily climbing.
Right.
And the Republicans have hung their hat on that. I, however, think that since the congressional map was redrawn in 2020, that it was redrawn to favor more Republican congressional members and so on and so forth. I'm not sold on the fact that this is a totally red state. If anything, it's purple. And we're going to see in 2024 exactly where it falls.
And to support your view, there are more and more independents here in Florida and more people registering as independents in Florida and across the country. So people are really wanting to say, hey, this is me. I'm going to be an independent thinker, and I'm going to make my own decision. There's more and more of that and less Democrat versus Republican. And that's going to be a big factor here in Florida and in some other states as well.
Again, we'll have to wait and see, but independent's a large voter bloc.
It's a big block right
Florida.
now.
Okay. Yeah. Also making news, severe flooding in the state this month, especially in South Florida. All of it coming as Governor DeSantis toured flood-ravaged areas on the East Coast and at the same time defended recent moves to roll back the state's climate change goals. In my mind, you can't have it both ways, but in this case, he does.
Climate change is here. The scientists can measure the carbon in the atmosphere. There are thousands of articles from scientists around the world who know what they're talking about, but we seem to have talking heads on TV who know more than the physicists and the climatologists. They know more than everybody, and they know everything that goes on in the climate, except they know nothing. The real truth is climate change is here, and in Florida, most people buy that. They agree with it. They just want to have something going on that will be a good thing going forward. What is the plan? And I think a lot of folks are thinking about that. And as we just said before, Democrats should be putting out a good message on this. It doesn't make sense to me to minimize or marginalize climate change. It's a reality.
Well, aside from Hawaii, maybe Louisiana, parts of Texas, Florida is really the most vulnerable state in the nation for climate change. We saw what happened on the east coast of Florida this last couple of weeks, as well as what happened on the west coast of Florida. There is flooding. How does the governor go out there and say, hey, despite what my own eyeballs are seeing, climate change is really not a concern, shouldn't be a concern?
This is power and politics. It's about power, and it is about politics.
All right, also making news in Florida this week, judges on a state appeals court appear divided on the constitutionality of a Florida law signed by Governor DeSantis that would limit what state university professors are allowed to say to students in the classroom. I always thought that when you went to college, it was an opportunity to expand your mind,
Right.
to see the world in a different place, to acquire critical thoughts and skills and so on and
Right.
so forth. How can you tell a professor you can't talk about A, B, and C, and if you do, you might be in trouble?
That would be impossible in my view. This is one of the craziest ideas I've ever heard of. I'm thinking of courses I took in history and systems of psychology and great philosophers. Well, the professor's got to give an opinion on why this person is important and what their thinking was all about and why there are differences, differential thinking, dynamic thinking. This is what happens in college when professors give their own views. And those views can be criticized also. And there should be divergent points of view with other professors. That's what it's all about. But minimizing and marginalizing people who are the professor, that doesn't make sense to me.
Well, the flip side of this is it is a sort of thought or groupthink within some communities that universities, colleges are much more liberal than they have to be. They're teaching things that should not be taught or should be minimized. You know, they are. These are the 4 years where you really gain some information about the world around you and expand your thought. So maybe they should not, and I'm going to play devil's advocate, maybe they should not be talking about things that are opinion-based.
Well, Frank, liberal arts, the psychology of liberal arts is not that somebody's liberal. That doesn't make any sense. It's not that we have liberals versus conservatives. Liberal in that context means that we have many different points of view, and we should look at them all and come up with some thinking about all of the factors. That's not right versus left. That's not red state versus blue state. No.
Well,
That's why it just doesn't make good sense to me.
The State Appeals Court is going to resolve this one way or another. We'll talk about it when they have their decision.
We'll see.
All right. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we see who was up and who was down this week as we present the always interesting and sometimes humorous segment that we call Sunshine or Showers when Power and Politics continues. Welcome back. The weather in Florida, as you know, especially during the spring and summer, can be changeable. Sunshine part of the day, drenching rain later. So every week we use that example to see who enjoyed the sunshine this week and who needed an umbrella. It's time now for Sunshine or Showers. And we start with a sunny day. Who's in the sunshine for you, Doctor?
Well, Frank, this week I have sports, okay, in the sunshine and the showers, okay? And definitely in the sunshine.
Sports, sunshine, and showers?
Yeah, I do.
You're out of control.
I know.
It's not a sports show, folks. This is not a sports show.
I know, but it's extreme. I understand that. But Bryson DeChambeau is in the sunshine not only because he won the U.S. Open again as a golfer, but he has actually transformed his personality. It's great that he could win twice, and that's a big deal in golf. But he has now referred to himself as Bryson 2.0 because he's worked on his personality, he's changed his demeanor, he's changed how he presents himself to people, he's more communicative, he's into people, and he's worked on himself. And we always talk here about a winning personality in politics and what that means. Well, here's a guy who's done it in sport. And I think he's really now a fan favorite.
Okay.
And I give him a lot of credit for his golf and for his work on his own personality.
And it's an example that you can change. It is possible.
It's very possible to change. You don't have to change and be totally different, but you can modify your behavior and become a better person, which we all should do.
Frank 2.0, Bart 2.3.
Maybe we'll be working on that. But who do you have?
Oh, who do
now?
I have in the sun? You're asking.
Sunshine.
Well, you know, this is actually a sad sunshine, but if you grew up watching baseball, the great Willie Mays has passed away. He is in the sunshine this week. He had a great career. He started in the late 1940s. He played all the way to 1972 for the New York Mets. There's the catch, that famous catch he made when he played on the San Francisco Giants. He was the all-around great baseball player. You played some baseball. I believe you were in the minor leagues for a while. It's just somebody you have to look up to. He passed away at 93. Willie Mays, a dynamite player, someone to look up to. He was great in all 5 stages of baseball.
I had a chance with the Twins. I never played minors, but I did play a lot of baseball until I was almost 40 years old. But I would like to say that, in my view, he was the greatest baseball player.
Really?
Because his personality was spectacular, but he was terrific in all areas of the sport.
Who will be missed? Willie Mays. All right.
Yeah.
Every sunny day, there's a shower. Usually comes about 3 o'clock during the summer. A little thunder, then it rains like crazy. Who's in the showers for you?
Well, as per all sports here today, I have the U.S. Women's Olympic basketball team.
In the showers.
Definitely in the showers. They could not find a spot for Caitlin Clark. The woman who is now perhaps the most famous, the most dynamic basketball player on the planet, male or female. I mean, thousands of people are coming out to the games just to watch her now that she's a pro, but somehow she wasn't good enough to be on the Olympic team. And what I'm saying is that there's always a reason to put somebody on the team. It doesn't mean that you have to be the best player necessarily, but you need to be a contributor. Well, certainly in this case, she is somebody who is dynamite. She's just the fan favorite, not only here, but around the world. And to have her not on this 12-person team is ridiculous to me. It's something that really should not happen, and it's a mistake. It shows some very poor thinking, shallow thinking, I would say, in this case with the basketball people.
All right, that's in the showers.
Big-time showers, in my view.
You're asking me now.
Come on. Yeah,
okay.
We have one more shower.
This is an easy one. Congressman Matt Gaetz this week is in the showers, for me at least. A committee in Congress has issued 25 subpoenas for a whole bunch of stuff, including sexual misconduct, alleged drug use, accepting gifts, obstruction, and so on and so forth. He's talking about running for governor at some point, or there's been some hints about that. Matt Gaetz in trouble again for possibly, and again, it hasn't been proven, inappropriate behavior. So Matt Gaetz is in the showers.
And this could be a very serious investigation because it's in Congress, and a lot of people in Congress are not too fond of him in the Republican Party, not only the Democratic Party. So could be a real problematic investigation here.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, a commentary by yours truly titled "Let's Be Frank," when Power and Politics continues. Welcome back. The currency of any good journalist is trust. That is taught to us the very first day. Trust and credibility allow journalists to do their jobs without question, to write and report on malfeasance unencumbered by suspicion. It is the entry fee to work in this noble profession. For journalists who stretch the truth or fabricate facts, it often means the end of their careers. Several years ago, former nightly news anchor Brian Williams was found to have embellished and in some cases made up stories in a book he wrote about his time in Iraq. His punishment was first a demotion, followed by his removal from the network. A good journalist also knows never to take sides, take money, or donate money to any particular candidate. It is an unwritten rule that we know without being told. That's why it troubles me so to see what's happening on the U.S. Supreme Court. These distinguished men and women have a responsibility to keep their personal feelings out of each decision and to make sure there is never, ever a hint of favoritism. Previous Supreme Court justices were pretty much unknown to the general public. They kept their opinions to themselves, and for good reason. There was never a hint of impropriety. Not so now. Clarence Thomas had to be forced to reveal that for years he had been receiving money and largesse from billionaire Harlan Crow. Staffers working for Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor pressured public institutions to buy hundreds and sometimes thousands of copies of her books with the understanding that she would appear at the institution somewhere down the road. We have a justice with an American flag outside his home flying upside down. The same justice palling around with a hedge fund billionaire with business before the Supreme Court. These actions by our justices corrode the faith we have in them and the Supreme Court. When they seem overly partisan or do not recuse themselves from a case where they clearly have a conflict, as any proper justice would do, all Americans suffer. How do they not know this? Why would they put themselves in a position to be questioned and when cornered wave off these improprieties as if they, the final word on what is legal in this great nation, are above the law? It's long past time they follow the same code of ethics that every justice on every lower court is required by law to obey. We'll be right back. That's it for this week's edition of Power and Politics. On behalf of my co-host, political psychologist Dr. Bart Rossi, and the fine folks working behind the scenes, thanks for joining us. As always, we'd like to know what you think. Visit us at powerandpolitics.tv or email us at info@powerandpolitics.tv. We'll see you again a week from now at this time on this same station. Have a great week.